Hey, everybody, welcome to the Jimmy Dore Show. I'm here with Steph Zamorano and Ron Placone.
Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, howdy.
So, vote blue no matter who is what the Democrats are saying, because the Democrats still don't have they don't have a platform that counters Donald Trump. In fact, they're going along with Donald Trump, the Democrats. They went along with exploding his Pentagon budget. They're going along with his his judge picks. They just fast-tracked 15 of his judges after the Republicans completely blocked Barack Obama's judges. It's unbelievable. They helped, the Democrats went along helping them, deregulate Wall Street again. So, in fact, and the Democrats even offered to build the wall. Did you know that? They offered to build a wall for Trump in their negotiations. And so it gets even worse. So now they're saying, oh, we're going to have a blue wave, blue wave. Okay, it only matters if there's a blue wave if the people in the blue wave are progressives and not corporatists. If they're corporatists, it will be shitty again, and we will get another Trump. Well, here's Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi's going back to Congress as the Democratic leader. This is from Dave Day, friend of the show, writer at The Intercept. He says, in case you missed it last night, up at The Intercept on Pelosi's adamant stand to revive PAYGO and cripple the ability to pursue an activist agenda, even with a Democrat in the White House. So Nancy Pelosi is endorsing this thing. We've talked about this before on the show. It's called PAYGO. And what is PAYGO? PAYGO means like if I want to have free college for everybody. We're gonna put $60 billion in the budget. You know how this year they put $80 billion in the budget for the Pentagon extra, and then they didn't go, well, how are you going to pay for that? We have to raise a tax somewhere to pay. They didn't do that. They never do that with the Pentagon. They just give them the money. They print it, and that's it. It's done. So if the progressives want to come in and let's do free college, Nancy Pelosi's PAYGO, they would have to raise taxes the exact amount of money it would cost for the free college. That's what PAYGO is. Or they would have to cut something else out of the budget. So it would have to be revenue neutral. So if you're progressive and you have if you were FDR and you wanted to have all this spending, deficit spending, you couldn't do that under Nancy Pelosi's rules. Because you can't raise the deficit unless you raise a tax. You can never raise a deficit. You have to raise a tax to pay for whatever program you have, or you have to cut something. And so what Dave Dane is pointing out was that what that does is it cripples the ability of the Democrats to pursue an activist agenda, even if Democrats in the White House. Here's the article. Nancy Pelosi promises that Democrats will handcuff the Democratic agenda if they retake the House. So even if the Democrats take over, you're screwed because Nancy Pelosi has already decided she's going to do this thing called PAYGO. And why would she decide to do that? Because her donors want her to do that. That's why. Because she's part of the 0.1%. She's part of the 1% of the 1%, Nancy Pelosi. That's why. Nancy Pelosi is your enemy. Chuck Schumer is your enemy. The Democratic Party is not your friend. And this idea that Bernie thinks he's taken over the party is a fucking pipe dream. You know how many corporate Democrats have been successfully primaried? One. Joe Crowley. Ayanna Pressley just primaried a progressive Democrat. I'll give you that. Two. I'll give you Ayanna Pressley. Two. 2 out of 436. Here it goes. In the first outline of the legislative agenda House Democrats would pursue if they take the majority in November, Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi has made the public a big promise, vowing to handcuff her party's progressive ambitions, including in the event that a Democratic president succeeds Donald Trump by resurrecting the PAYGO rule that mandates all new spending is offset with budget cuts or tax increases. Along the way, she is playing into the hands of the Republican strategists. Nancy Pelosi often plays right into the hands of the Republican strategists, and she doesn't care. Because she doesn't care if the Democrats are wiped out. That's not what this is about. So she is playing into the hands of Republican strategists eager to warn voters that Democrats' top priority is raising taxes. Forcing budget offsets for every piece of legislation would make it more difficult for Democrats to pass a host of liberal agenda items, from Medicare for all to tuition-free public college. So now if you want to pass Medicare for all, it's going to cost $32 trillion a year. It's going to save us as a nation trillions of dollars. But as a government expenditure, it's going to be an extra $32 trillion. So you wouldn't be able to do that under Nancy Pelosi's plan. Do you see it? Are you getting it now? Or free college tuition. You'd have to raise taxes $60 billion. And then the Republicans go, Democrats are raising taxes. Whereas the Republicans don't care about exploding the deficit. They do it every time they get control. Well, it continues a trend of Democrats caring far more about deficits than the Republicans, constraining the activist impulses of liberal policymakers while giving conservatives free rein to blow giant holes in the tax code. So the Republicans get elected. They go, we're going to have $1 trillion tax cut. We're going to blow $1 trillion hole into the budget just like that to give tax cuts to rich people. We ain't going to offset it. F you. We're going to blow up the deficit. Well, that'll be bad for you electorally. No, it won't. And it never is. But the Democrats, they all run around with their hair on fire. We got to cut the deficit. People will think we're fiscally not responsible. The whole idea that if you're, they go, well, people like to say I'm fiscally conservative, I'm socially liberal, meaning they're Republican, who like gay people. But
they might be cool with abortion too.
They might, but fiscally conservative and Republican have nothing to do with each other. It's just a meme, or it's just some kind of wives' tale in America that Republicans are, conservative, so they're about tightening the budget and keeping things and not spending money. They're about spending money everywhere, blowing holes in the deficit.
Except on normal Americans.
Exactly right. They're for $1 trillion bank bailouts. They're for $1 billion oil subsidies. They're for $1 trillion wars. They're for $1 trillion Pentagon budgets. They're for $1 trillion tax cuts. But it's the Democrats who are supposed to be the pre-spenders. When Republicans took over the House, they changed the pay-go rule because Nancy Pelosi instituted the pay-go rule in 2007. They changed the pay-go to cut-go. The Republicans did, applying offsets only to spending instead of tax cuts, mandating that spending must be offset with budget cuts instead of tax increases. That still left the statutory law, which retained those aspects, but Republicans waived it for the Trump tax cuts. The move was a formalization of the trend. Deficit fears stop Democrats from moving forward on social programs, while Republicans plow ahead with tax cuts when they get to power. So I'm just going to read that to you again. The move was a formalization of the trend. Deficit fears stop Democrats from moving forward on social programs, while Republicans plow ahead with tax cuts when they get to power. So Democrats will never do the social programs that are needed because of Nancy Pelosi's idea about pay-go, because you'll have to raise taxes to do it, and they don't want to be seen as people raising taxes. And Republicans don't, and they don't want to do a social program because it will add to the deficit, and they don't want to be seen as adding to the deficit or raising taxes. Well, the Republicans don't care. They don't want to be seen as raising taxes either, but they don't care about being seen as blowing up the deficit. They always blow up the deficit. Always. Every time a Republican's in charge, they blow up the deficit. Starting from Ronald Reagan, they blow up the deficit. Ronald Reagan had record deficits. Remember Dick Cheney said, Reagan proved deficits don't matter, meaning people don't care. They don't. Pelosi's planned legislative package for the beginning of a potential House takeover would include establishing ethics and lobbying reforms, lowering the cost of health insurance premiums and prescription drugs, and spending $1 trillion for infrastructure investment. The latter two, meaning lowering the cost of premiums on prescription drugs and health, and at the $1 trillion infrastructure spending, those two things cost money. And under pay-go, it would all have to be offset, meaning you'd have to raise taxes to pay for that stuff or cut something. That's not necessarily a problem. Liberals have plenty of ideas for how to raise revenue, but it puts them in a box, having to propose tax increases that the Republicans gleefully broadcast. Meanwhile, Republicans unconcerned with deficits get to play Santa Claus without having to match tax cuts with anything unappealing. So when they cut their taxes, they didn't have to cut a program that people liked. So they get to give everybody everything. They're the Santa Claus, the Republicans. Here's a tax cut, and here's your social programs, and here's your wars, and here's your bank bailouts, and here's your oil subsidies. And there goes our deficit exploding. And guess what the Republicans say? Don't give a fuck. And they wipe the Democrats out at the ballot box. So in this article, he talks with Stephanie Kelton, who we're trying to get on the show to talk about modern monetary theory. And she says this. She says pay-go is a self-imposed, economically illiterate approach to budgeting. Let me say that again. Pay-go is a self-imposed, economically illiterate approach to governing, to budgeting. Republicans, she said, know this, which is why they have unabashedly used their power to expand deficits and hence deliver windfall gains for big corporations and the already well-to-do. She continued, instead of, and this is it right here, in a nutshell, of what's wrong with the Democrats. Instead of vowing budget chastity, instead of the Democrats vowing to tighten their belts and never add to the deficit, instead of vowing budget chastity, Democrats should be articulating an agenda that excites voters so that they can unleash the full power of the public purse on their behalf. They should be articulating an agenda that excites voters. And that's exactly what the Democrats aren't doing. And you know why? Because that agenda would go against the Democrats' donor class. So that's why they are not articulating an agenda that excites voters. Because that agenda that excites voters would depress their donors. And we all know who runs the Democratic Party. It's the 1% donors. Let me throw it to my panel.
I think this proves once and for all that winning is maybe third or fourth on the Democrats' priority list.
Yes.
I mean, we're going to institute pay-go. Finally, that was on my list of concerns. Nobody will ever say that in the history of ever.
Nobody.
And as Dr. Kelton said, this is completely self-imposed. And it just kneecaps the voters, and it kneecaps any progressive agenda. Because it's like, well, we can't instill this because it would raise taxes, and the Republicans will run with it and beat us in elections.
Right.
So we can't do anything, but you either have us doing nothing or you have a Republican, and it's better us than the Republicans. It just kneecaps the entire process.
Where was the big pay-go idea when they decided to explode the military budget?
Oh, yeah, I want to ask Nancy Pelosi, where's your pay-go idea on that?
Like that's the significant amount of how much spending we're doing where it's taking away from Americans. It's
and we could have had
it's off the chart.
And we could have had free college like that. They just proved it when they added $80 billion to the Pentagon budget with no debate, no public hearings, no testimony in Congress, no town halls, no Anderson Cooper going to Ohio, rolling up his sleeves and talking to regular people. Hey, should we? They just did it. Imagine all the conversation and hand-wringing that would go into if we put $60 billion to free college. Oh, my God, it would be nonstop on the... They did this. Nobody even talked about it. Rachel Maddow, Chris Hayes, they don't even talk about it. Why? Because they are owned by the 1% themselves. They are the 1%. Rachel Maddow is the 1% of the 1%, by the way, in case you didn't know.
And so is Nancy Pelosi.
And so is Nancy Pelosi. So that's who these people are. The 1% of the 1%. And that's why any blue just won't do. And that's why this is not the resistance. This is the opposite of resistance. This is assisting the Republicans. This is suppressing Democratic votes. This is suppressing people who would come out and vote for you if you actually articulated an agenda that excited them. And what is the agenda that excites them? Bernie Sanders' agenda. Free college. Single-payer health care, Medicare for all, break up the banks, end the wars, living wage. It's not that complicated. That's an agenda that excites people. You're actually talking about something that people want, and you're going to give to them. Instead of, Trump's bad, vote for me, Trump is bad. What are you going to do for me? Trump is bad. Well, we have pay-go, so we can't do anything for you. But we will offer to build the wall for Trump, which is what the Democrats actually did. So again, another very depressing day for Democrats, and this is the thing that doesn't make headlines. No one's going to talk about this today. What they're going to talk about is something Trump did again. It was Russia and money and something, and somebody else. We got him now. We got him this time. You can't believe the stupid thing Trump did this time. Well, you can't believe the stupid thing the Democrats are doing constantly. Trump is so stupid, he beat the Democrats. Think about that. That guy's so dumb. He's such an idiot, such a man-child, and you guys couldn't beat him. That's how horrible you are. You're worse than Trump. You are dumber than Trump, and there's no doubt about it. You're certainly just as corrupt, because this is corruption. This isn't a good idea. Nancy Pelosi knows what the effect of this is. This is a horrible idea. This is corruption in action. This is her bowing to her donors. Again, over you, the voter. So vote blue. Go ahead, vote blue. And then the Democrats will take over the Congress, and then they will do absolutely fucking nothing. Nothing. Like they always do. Not even a public option. I bet if the Democrats take over the House, they propose a tax cut. I'll bet you any fucking money that they propose a tax cut. I'll bet you any money. Okay, so there you go. Democrats, worse than you could have ever imagined. Nancy Pelosi, the enemy of the people. Once again, another 1% of she's a 1%er, baby. She's your enemy, and she's proving it time and time again. Time for a third party, Bernie. Thanks for watching. Please make sure you're subscribed. Even if you think you are, you're probably not. It only takes a second to check, and then you have to ring that bell so they send you a notification when we drop a new video. Otherwise, they won't tell you when we drop new videos. And if you like our show, please help support it. Become a patron. We give you hours of bonus material every week, and we give a live stream. We do a live stream every Saturday at 2 p.m. Pacific time when you could ask us questions, and we answer them back. Thanks for your support.